On another episode of Soothing Semantics, I am your host, Rafi Pinsky. And make sure to subscribe, like, share, leave your comments, follow Rafi the Realtor on Instagram for all of your real estate needs. Make sure to check out the weekly newsletter where you can get all of the updates on the South Florida market. So make sure to go to the link in bio. You can reach out to me if you have my contact, and I would be very, very happy to help you. Without further ado, we have the Clatt that travels, the ethnically ambiguous Indian Dell technical support. Dude, that's how we met, dude. I had a problem with my PC. I
Oh,
I
oh,
called him
fuck
up.
you. I was busy freeing Palestine. What are you talking about?
It's true. It's true. Yeah, he was face deep in some chicken tikka masala,
Oh,
and
nice. You
he had some
know already.
he had some butter, he had some
Butter naan.
garlic naan with cheese.
I tried to fix the computer's nano parts, but I couldn't because my hands were buttered from naan.
So make sure to
Oh, I
check him
never,
out.
I never helped my own case. That's the problem. And now I recently went to India too, so I just I picked up the accent even more, and now I'm fucked. Like everyone's gonna think I'm Indian forever.
I know. I'm sure when you're in India, you fit in so well, bro. It's crazy.
Everybody, you know what's funny? My whole life, people have been telling me I look Indian, and I rejected the premise. I was like, fuck it. I know I don't look Indian. And I got to India, everyone was positive that I was Indian, and they were fucking flabbergasted that I didn't know how to speak Hindi. And yeah, yeah, it was hilarious.
It's quite funny. It's quite funny.
It
Well,
reaffirmed the bias.
yeah, dude. Well, like an Indian prince, not like we're not talking about it at the on the low end of the totem pole or anything.
Oh
Just
yeah, I wasn't a commoner. They referred to me as Punjabi, which is like the more people thought I was like an upper class Punjabi person, like the border of Pakistan, that area.
the
Those
royalty.
the royalty, the Sikh royalty people. That's what people thought I was. So I was like, all right, I'll take it.
Yeah,
At
dude.
least
And you kind of put like gold flakes on your naan. You don't just eat the naan out of the oven, you know? Little
do
pellets of cow duty.
a little like
Little
salt based style.
Yes, dude, I think let's just talk about this for the rest of the episode.
My
So
Indian.
I'm down. I'm down. So guys, there's a war against the Jews. Obviously
What? What are you
people
talking about? There's a war?
Well, you have another war to deal with Pakistan. So yeah, man. The Jews unfortunately were massacred. 1,500 of us on the 7th of October, and I think most of the people listening to this episode will have heard about this. It's everywhere, and so we have now entered Gaza, and the outcome will hopefully be Israel's victory. I'm supremely confident that will be the case. I have lots of faith, and I know what we're capable of. And so the question becomes, what will happen afterward? So I'm open to your thoughts, Ranjib.
My Indian analysis. No, I mean I think that it's I've never seen our country and our people come together in such unity before. While there's like those self-hating Jews that kind of like stand there on street corners trying to get the approval of white people and Arabs for some reason that want to chant free Palestine or ceasefire and things like that. Like just random terms to get like this faux level of loyalty or not loyalty but respect from people who don't fucking matter. I think for the first time in my life I've ever seen our nation and our people come together all in agreement that we cannot live next to Hamas anymore. Like nobody is willing to do it. Nobody wants to do it. And it's like people might try to pin the country into like it's political, it's isn't that man, I myself know so many people who flew without even being called just to be ready in the reserves, just like everybody is willing to fight right now because it's a sort of second time liberation of the country, and this time we're liberating our Palestinian friends as well, people who are actually innocent civilians in hopes of a better life for all of us together, not just in the interest of Jewish people, but in the interest of Arabs who live under the borders of Israel as well, who are extremely targeted during the attacks that Hamas committed. And so I think it's this sort of we're ushering in a new future, which is very exciting in a lot of ways, very sad obviously with what happened, but we are ushering in a new future of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and where we might go from all of this.
Well, if I'm playing devil's advocate, right? If somebody who's pro-Palestinian and or anti-Israel, because it's usually synonymous, uh, what would you say to the people who would respond to what you said when you said we're saving the Palestinians? They say, "Oh, well, you're bombing the shit out of Gaza. How does that help?"
Would say you're committing a genocide. That's what they would say. You say you're
Right.
ethnically cleansing Palestinians from the thing. I mean, I've had nonstop discussions with Palestinians for the last month about all this, but every time you confront them on the facts, and it's again, I understand when you're seeing the news and you're seeing the horrifying images that are coming from the strip, it's horrible. There's
Hmm.
no denying it. It's a horrible atrocity that's happening that civilians have to die. And a lot of times these are completely innocent civilians. I mean, a child is innocent. A child
Hmm.
cannot be uninnocent.
Yeah, yeah.
But, but from the same perspective, it's understanding how we got there, accountability, taking responsibility for how we got there. Um, and obviously they would deny the claims that I'm saying we're actually doing something useful. But what's the alternative? Living under Hamas, it's repressive, and they've shown everybody now. There's so many Arab Israelis that are coming out. And I covered myself on Instagram the story of one individual, Awad Darawshi, he was a paramedic who was in the Nova Music Festival, who he stood till the very last moment. He had a phone call with his fucking brother
You're talking about the
when
medic, right?
yeah, when the terrorists came in, and he said, "No, I'm gonna fucking stay here. I'm gonna try to help people, and because I speak Arabic, they probably won't hurt me." And then they fucking gunned him down while he was bandaging a girl in the
Hmm.
fucking party. And there's so many cases of this, like of Arab Israelis who were targeted without even like no like they didn't fucking interview them say like, "Are you pro-Palestinian?" Like, they just
Yeah,
fucking murdered them. They murdered
yeah.
them because there was one that was recorded too, that a Palestinian gunman, like a terrorist from Hamas, he asked, this guy was begging for his life. This Arab Israeli was begging for his life. I think he was Bedouin. Oh, sorry, he was a fellow Palestinian who just works within Israel, and he shot and killed him because he works in Israel. I mean, they were all drugged up. Obviously, they weren't thinking right, but
Hmm.
it's like, not that you can really think right in that context, but it's like Hamas and the people who control the Gaza Strip, they are no friend of anyone.
But
The only
real quick, first off, I obviously agree with you. Second of all, he killed him because he works in Israel, but yet Gazans were allowed permits to work. So how does that make it?
it's but again, and that's it's there's a transcript of it too. I don't remember the exact details, but it's all like you can find it on Google.
It's interesting you mentioned the drug, by the way, because I'm going to quickly just give the viewers an idea because people might be wondering what kind of drug it is. I'm just going to put in because I saw this Hamas drug. Du-du-du-du-du. Yeah, Hamas militants used poor man's cocaine during Israel attack. Let me find the name of it. Let's see here. Well, the Gaza, okay. Earlier in January, Israeli security personnel intercepted a shipment of thousands of Captagon, that was the name of it, Captagon
Heptagon, yeah.
pills that were concealed within refrigerators, which were being smuggled into Gaza. The Times of Israel reported this incident. Hamas militants used Captagon during their surprise attack on Israel on October 7th, which killed more than 1,400 people. The militants carried out a well-coordinated assault from the Gaza Strip onto bordering areas in Israel. Uh, I just wanted to read what this drug does real quick. Okay, Captagon or phenethylene hydrochloride was initially developed in the 1960s in West Germany. Okay, it was intended to treat ADHD and other things, but let's see.
Oh, really?
Okay. Militant groups have reportedly used Captagon to enhance certain desirable characteristics in their fighters, such as aggressiveness and alertness. The drug has also become a major revenue source for the Syrian President Bashar Assad's regime. But ultimately, what I read about this drug is it removes the feeling of mercy. It makes you more alert. It makes you more aggressive. It makes you more violent. There were militaries throughout history who used different forms of drugs. As far as I know, the Israeli military hasn't. I mean, maybe in the early days, I couldn't tell you. Maybe during
Yeah.
the Irgun or Palmach, I don't know, because things were a lot more militant back then. But nowadays, I would be absolutely shocked if there was any kind of anything other than maybe some guys taking some Adderall when no one knows. But who knows?
Yeah, or maybe there's some emergency cases where you need to take some sort of stimulant if it's a high stakes situation. Yeah, I don't know.
Mhm.
Even though I don't really think that's probably something that we do. Um,
It's I listen. It's anything's possible, but I don't think we're definitely not doing any of this. I can't imagine. I would be very
that's for
surprised.
sure. No.
Yeah, I would be very surprised. So ultimately, I mean, this is what the reality is. And I know this just because I know this. We're going to win. We have to. We don't have a choice. And the response on the other end could be, oh, well, they don't have a choice either. No, they do in a way. They can surrender. We are not going to
Yeah.
give up this. We're not going to give up this fight. And honestly, I am. Part of me is actually surprised because Israel has disappointed me in terms of these ceasefires because I've been saying this for so many years already that we keep creating these ceasefires. Hamas restocks, they get more weapons. We're back at square one again. They start the same bullshit rocket firing, and then we're constantly in this position of mowing the lawn. And now, unfortunately, when this attack happens, now the we finally have the gall to go ahead and make this a final decision. And I hope we will, man. I just want to get into the conversation with you of what the hell we're gonna do once we take over Hamas. Hopefully they surrender or we kill most of them, if not all of them. What do you think should be the outcome, man? I mean, does the PA take over? Because as I mentioned to you when we were talking before the podcast, it'll just become some kind of crazy anarchist state if they don't have somebody ruling them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've discussed this in private as well, but I've been thinking about this a lot, not just now, but like throughout the years. Is like, what happens if you somehow get rid of Hamas? You've got so many elements to look at. One, you've got Hamas, you've got Palestinian Islamic Jihad, whatever other small militant groups are in there that align with those two groups or run shit on their own. And then you've got this population of around 50 to 60% of pedestrian citizens who also believe in the extremism that they preach.
That's kind of the problem, bro, is like we're calling them innocents, but we know in the back of our mind, in the front of our minds, that a lot of them are in support of them, and that's it.
Here's
Yeah.
the thing though, too, just to give them the benefit of the doubt, it's like
Mhm.
we don't really know. I mean, I know a lot of those surveys were done on the UN, so it's as unbiased as it could be, but also uh we don't really know what they can say and what they can't say, what they feel comfortable saying, what they can't.
It's true.
And women and children, for the most part, to me, are innocent. For the most
Hmm.
part. I know Palestinian women have had a history in committing terrorist attacks, specifically on Israeli citizens and on Israeli civilians, in using that whole scapegoat of being a woman or being a child to do it. But I still think that the vast majority of women and children in the strip can be given a new life, a new lease on life. I think when it comes to young men, it's a fucking wash. Like there's gonna be no way to realistically vet young men. It's just unfortunate, but that's a situation. They're the most prone, they're the biggest potential threat. And so we've seen looking around at the Arab world, specifically in the Levant, if you look at Syria, you look at Lebanon, you look at Egypt, specifically in the Sinai Peninsula, you look at Jordan, we cannot, by any good faith, by any good stretch of the imagination, relinquish freedom to the Gaza Strip as a country who is occupying or blockading them at the moment. You couldn't in good faith relinquish freedom to them, because we know that freedom wouldn't realistically do anything, not for us and not for the Palestinian people. And so I think the only realistic situation is if the interests of the West are to subdue this horrific terrorist mindset, this religious extremism. And I don't think that Palestinians are Afghanistani. I don't think they're Afghans. I don't think that they will not jump at the opportunity to get a better life through money. I think that Afghans, you can't reason with them with money. They oppose the West in a way that it's deep rooted with them, and there's been years of colonization that's tried to happen in Afghanistan. They pushed all of them off. Similar to Iraq, I think as well. I think Iraq won't
Hmm.
go with the money. They're too Arabized. I think that
Hmm.
Palestinians are not even true Arabs. They have their own identity crisis that they deal with on a day to day. And I think the Lebanese, for example, the Jordanians, the Syrians, the Egyptians all follow this trend of they will go where the money is. They will go where the opportunity is. And so you need to instill, in my opinion, and I know this sounds fucking horrific, but just vibe with me on it for a second. Probably what you need to instill is some sort of dictator uh that's aligned with the West, um, that that can rule with an iron fist and not allow in any way, shape, or form the development of more extremism, more religious extremism. It needs to be shut down then and there.
But do you think that the Palestinian population is going to be okay with a more westernized leader? Like that's the question: is what kind of do we have like an Al-Sisi like in Egypt? What kind of leader do we have?
I unfortunately don't think that the Palestinians are going to accept anything that isn't Hamas. I think that if it doesn't come from them specifically, and I don't foresee them if they're given some sort of option to vote democratically again, that they wouldn't vote another extremist group in, just because after all of this, they're not going to want. I'm talking about the Palestinians in Gaza. They're not going to want peace with Israel, and
No way.
rightfully so. They don't understand what's actually going on the ground. They've been brainwashed for so many years. They've been locked in this fucking horrific position for so many years. There's no possible way that
Yeah.
they're gonna want to align with the West in any format. So it's like kind of like for the betterment of everyone, you need to strip them. And I know it sounds horrible, but you need to strip them of the opportunity to put themselves back where they are now and actually save them, actually liberate them with a bit of a dictatorship in the beginning,
That's
like
what's
a
so that's what's so crazy is there's this guy Cenk Uygur, I think, or Uyghur, I forgot how to pronounce his
yeah,
name,
the
the Young
fucker
Turks.
from the Young Turks.
That
Yeah,
guy, right? So he always has this fucking yelling explosions where he's
yeah.
like, their boots, you have your boots on their neck, and it's like, yeah, they're in tough positions, there's no question. And Israel is putting them under this blockade for obvious reasons. And the whole thing's very tough. Like there are parts of what he says that I can understand. What he doesn't understand, because he goes, "Oh, you think that they can't even govern themselves." It's like, well, they've kind of proven that they can't because they
Wh-
can't even agree to
Where in
one
the
government.
Levant? Where in the Levant can one of the countries govern themselves?
It's
Every single
crazy.
country in the Levant is a fucking shit show. Every single one, including ours. Yeah,
Yeah,
like I mean, we're the best off. We
yeah,
we've we sell the facade of we're doing all right, pretty fucking well to the world. But Jordan is a fucking wash. It's Palestinian oppression, and like it's a full on like a
Lebanon's
monarchy of
terrible. Yeah,
Palestinian oppression. Egypt is a fucking mess. It's a goddamn mess with racial division, religious division, oppression of Coptics. It's like a fucking crazy mess. Lebanon's not even a fucking country at this point. It's
yeah,
nothing. Lebanon isn't anything. It's just Hezbollah in the south and these fucking calm, modest Arab Christians in the north that are just like, we just want to fucking live. We just want to party and eat shawarma, and that's all we want to do. We want to be the Europeans of the Arab world. And then Syria is just a fucking civil war that's never ending because it's being funded by Iran and Russia. And it's like you look at everyone around us is like, no, none of these motherfuckers can govern themselves. They all are fucking terrible at doing it. The only ones who have any sort of semblance of unity and like something is the Gulf states like Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia. kind of is getting there, but kind of, and Oman. And even then, they're based on the backs of fucking importing millions. I
Wait,
mean, I'm talking millions of like forced laborers from around the world, stripping them of their passports and using them as modern day slavery. So you look around everywhere in the Arab world, it's they have proven to the world that give them power and oppression will happen. Give them power and death is going to happen. And again, it's not an anti-Arab sentiment. It's just like that's the world of the Middle East. That's the world we live in. Why would we relinquish power to people who obviously can't be trusted?
yeah. Like we have our own issues with the Israeli government. Leaders want power in every country, but there are different levels of fairness. The fact that there are billionaire Hamas leaders is mind-blowing to me. It's
And
mind-blowing to me.
the fact that they live in Qatar is fucking unbelievable. That shit is insane.
Isn't it crazy? Did you see those pictures of Khalid Mashal like playing ping pong? I think he was doing a bunch of other things. Did
That
you
it's
see
just
it?
like
Did you see it?
without I haven't seen that one specifically, but I saw a picture like a video of them in a hotel room and they were really flamboyantly dressed and like kissing each other and I was like, what the fuck? Like how does this like this is the one shit that's the one thing I'll give shit to our government is like we have the Mossad, we have people all over the world, doing secret operations and stuff that's all hush hush. How the fuck are the leaders of Hamas just chilling? How are they just
Well,
chilling?
they tried to kill Khalid Mashal many years ago when Netanyahu was prime minister. Mossad tried to poison him.
Yeah, but like what I don't understand is how currently he's in Qatar. Like Qatar is just steps away from making peace with us, in my opinion. I don't think they're very far off. The fact that they're mediating between Hamas and they can't really be on the side of Hamas. Qatar, it's just hard to imagine.
Yeah, well, if you're giving him refuge, then you're not really on our side. Why would you be giving him refuge?
But that's what I don't understand is like Qatar behaves politically very similar to the UAE, Saudi, Bahrain, who have all made peace with us. They look up to those countries like they want to be one and the same.
Right.
And you like Hamas is a Hamas's ideology, they would murder everybody in Qatar. They're like religious extremists, but they're also anarchists. They don't want semblance of order and peace. And so I don't understand what interest does Qatar have of hosting these motherfuckers? I don't understand.
I don't know. I don't know.
Like
I think I
Pakistan,
think I think
Afghanistan.
I think humans need their own planets, man. I'm telling you. I just think we should have, a planet for every group of people, and that's it. Not, and obviously that wouldn't actually work, but like I think Jews at this point, I think Jews at this point should have their own planet. The only
I
problem
think
is,
I really do believe we can live with Palestinians side by side. They can be fucking cool people, man. I honestly have had the opportunity to hang out with a lot of really cool Palestinians. They can be fucking cool, man. And their culture is the more you learn about it, we are one and the same. They are a part of us. They're an integral part of us. I think that the what we look at when we look at Hamas, it's like we're looking at the dark side of us. We're looking at ourselves in the mirror, but like the really dark side of us. But like there's no doubt in when we're killing Palestinians or when when all these terrible things are happening in Gaza, it's we are killing our own people. The culture might be imported, the language might be imported, the religion is imported from a different place, but genetically the people are us. They are us. We are one and the same. They
an
they're a
interesting
part.
state.
It
Yeah,
is true. Genetically, if you tested the genetics of Palestinians, they stem from the land. They're
yeah.
not from somewhere else. They are from there. Um, they do have a rightful claim to
Well,
the land.
some of them aren't, because there's definitely a lot
Some
of
of them
them that
are,
are.
some of them aren't. There are a lot of families that came from Egypt, but you know, at the end of the day, for the most part, most Palestinians can trace their DNA to the Levant and at the very most
Yeah.
Israel, and uh, and they're a part of us, man. They're our brothers, and they're our brothers and our sisters are our family. And I think for sure that we can live in peace, man. I've had so many positive experiences hanging out with
Yeah,
Palestinians.
you can, man, but the problem is the overall picture. So it's like, how does that work? Because the problem, dude, is like what you're saying sounds very nice. First of all, in the current state, most Israelis would just be like, to hell with all of it. Couldn't really say I
Yeah.
blame them. Second of all, The problem mainly, I think, is the number of them versus us. If they were a tiny group of people and we can just take them into the country, they would get citizenship, they would live by our rule, they would be maybe 10% of the country. Okay. The Druze, for example, they're super loyal. They're a small percentage of the population. They don't threaten us in any way because of they're such a small. If they were 50% of the population, it might change things. So, the minorities in Israel, for the most part, respect our way of doing things and they're loyal to the country, and that's it. But if we have to worry about the Palestinian percentage or the Palestinian population overtaking us, I think that's the biggest problem, dude. And at this point, there are about as many of them as there are of us in the entire world. If we're looking at quote unquote people who identify as Palestinians all over the world, there's as many of them as there are Israelis.
I think
And
there's
so,
more. Surpassed. I
yeah,
think
I
there's
mean, I'm not talking
surpassed
about the
Palestinian.
Jewish population, but yeah, I'm talking about
No, no, the
Israel.
Israeli pop. I think they've
Yeah,
surpassed the Israeli population.
yeah, we're talking about the ones in Europe and America, in the
Yeah.
refugee camps in the Levant, the ones in the West Bank, the ones in Israel proper, if they consider the whatever it is. So yeah, like I'm saying, what does peace look like, man? Because I'm very against giving away land. I'm very against that.
I agree with you.
I
I
actually
think
saw an
relinquishing.
interview. I actually
Yeah.
saw an interview by a rabbi. He was on some news site and he was saying the fact that Israel has given away land actually tells the world that we're wrong for having it. That giving away land subconsciously tells the world that we believe it's not ours. And I completely agree, and it's not the first time I've heard it, and it's very, very true. Secondly, we fought and we won. So to give land away, it also hasn't worked. It also doesn't do anything because there's too many of them that have an ultimate goal of taking all of it. So all we're doing is furthering their goal. We give them to them, they go, you know what? Okay, we got a little bit more this time. Let's keep fighting them. We'll get a little more. If we keep fighting them, we'll get a little more until we eventually have everything. That's what they're thinking. It's very naive to think otherwise. So the two-state solution, I don't believe in because why the hell are we giving away more land? It makes no sense. And then sharing it with them is another issue because there's so many of them at this point. So honestly, dude, I don't know what the hell to do. I really don't. It would be great if they went to Jordan or if they went to the Sinai. That was a plan, supposedly, that many of them would go to Sinai. It's such a massive space, but they wouldn't want to do it, I imagine.
No, but
Egypt.
again, they. I mean, what like the ones who live in Bethlehem, for example, in Area C or in Beit Jala,
Mhm.
who live on this borderline of being Palestinian or being Israeli, and they have a lot of interaction with Jews and with Israelis on a day to day.
Is Beit
And the
Jala, maybe
ones
Beit Jala is Beit Chala and Bethlehem is Bethlehem, so makes you wonder.
Beit Jala, I never thought about that.
Yeah, and this is
Um,
why these should be our lands. This is my point.
regardless of the fact, like Bethlehem being what it is now, it's been overtaken by Muslim Palestinians.
Yeah, it's such an integral part of Judaism. That's what's
You
funny. But
you
yeah.
can't you can't repel those people backwards. You can't tell them you can't live here anymore because of your religion.
Hmm.
And also, it's like the same way, for example, this whole two-state solution thing, which is complete idiocy. I don't think it's right for anybody to tell me that if I wanted to live in Hebron or if I wanted to live in Shechem, I can't live in Shechem because of the fact that I'm a Jew. And I don't think that it's right for anybody to be able. I truly don't believe that it's right for anybody to tell a Palestinian that they can't live in Yafo or they can't live in Haifa or they can't live in this or that because they were born in the West Bank or in Gaza.
Dude, I love
So,
what you're saying. I love what you're saying. Oh, go ahead. I'm listening.
but so when I calculate, when I look at all that from the big picture, I'm like, okay, it's not right for me to say that to them, and it's not right for them to say that to me. And at the moment, the only apartheid that really exists that I see is we can't live in Gaza and we can't live in any Arab area of the West Bank. We're not even allowed to fucking enter them because they'll kill us en masse. You have
Hmm.
to go in complete secrecy the way that I went into Ramallah with Corey, where you have to hide your identity. Can't say that you're Jewish, can't say that you're Israeli because they'll just fucking murder you. Um, and so for me, it's like there's no point in trying to even push this stupid ideology of a two-state solution. And all these fucking European countries in the UN are like, no, we need to get back to the roots of a two-state solution. It's like that two-state solution is gone. There's no possibility. You'd have to
Hmm.
start a civil war in the West Bank where people would be killing each other en masse. It would be
Yeah.
armies and small militias against each other. And there's no point. We should find a way to incorporate Palestinians with dignity into the country. Again, it's complicated, and I'm not just throwing it out and saying kumbaya, we need to have peace. I've thought about it a lot. There are ways to do it. There are ways to do it with autonomous regions, with autonomous zones. You know, it does relinquish certain voting powers away. It will never be able to be 1,000%,
Well,
100%
what about the
equality.
security risks of it, man? Because how can you guarantee that we're not going to have Hamas style terrorist groups if we do that? What if we just let them? We
Can't,
open the gates. We open the gates. We just say, "All right, come live with us."
but
But
that's
no,
not how you do it, first of all.
okay,
You
so how do
can't
you do
do
it?
it that way. But it's but
Well, you let
it,
10 of them in at a time. How does that work?
No, I think as crazy as it sounds, it's a big fixation that needs to be done on women and children specifically, vetting them first, and yes, breaking up families. I think what people don't understand is that this scenario is fucking insane. This whole scenario is crazy. And so to
Mhm.
try to find the humanity, dignity, and like the legal, ethical way to do every fucking small movement, it's impossible. People are like, you break up families. You can't take this. No, it's a fucking crazy situation. We've been at war for 75 years. People are going to be displaced. That's the reality of the situation. You can't undo that. That's just real. That's
Can
what's
I
gonna
be
happen.
can I be real as fuck with you? And I said this before, and this is just people who are very logically minded can understand this. When you conquer a land and you don't conquer it to the point of no return, you're left with a large enough population that's going to constantly fight you for their view of what things should be like. And so this is even a biblical term. I think it's in Devarim. It's in, is it in? I think it pretty much says if you don't drive out the inhabitants of the land, then they will be a thorn in your side. And it sounds super brutal and medieval, but I mean that's the reality, man. And this is not me saying people who are here this, oh, is that what you're suggesting? No, it's what has been true. It is what has been true since the beginning of time, though. Okay,
I'll tell you
so
something in
so
return to
so
that.
so I'm
Sorry,
so
sorry.
what so yeah so what I'm saying is now that and we had brutal wars in the beginning of Israel's independence, and things were not great in the beginning. Like it was bad, but the Palestinian population has grown significantly since then. As much as people want to label us, want to throw the genocide card all the time, it's like we're not doing a great job with that considering how much they've grown.
Yeah.
And that yeah, that presents a challenge. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think specifically in that regards, it's something that I've been talking to a lot of people, especially explaining to a lot of people who look at this conflict from the outside, because I'm connected to a bunch of people from a bunch of different diverse backgrounds around the world. A lot of people are misinformed and don't even know anything about the conflict. They couldn't even point to it on the map. And so they have questions, they come to me with questions. I try to explain to them all the time that if Israel has above and beyond the capability to commit an actual genocide. If they were trying to commit a genocide, they're doing a fucking shitty job at it. Like really, they're doing a shitty job at it. And I think the core of what it comes back to, it's like desire and what our nation actually wants. And I think in reality, you can see when you speak to the average Israeli, they're not looking for fucking oppression. They're not looking to oppress Palestinians. They just want to live in peace. They don't give a
Hmm.
fuck. They
Yeah,
don't they don't have an interest to occupy land, quote unquote, take people's houses. They're not really interested in that.
that's the thing that's so different is like people want to try to compare us to Nazis. We don't inherently hate them. It's caused a hatred because we can't get a break. And I understand the hatred on both sides to an extent. But like I said, imagine the Palestinian population was only 10 to 20% of the Israeli population, and that's all it was. That's pretty much what it stayed at. They weren't having 9, 10 kids. It was pretty much just a. 20% even isn't even that small of a number. It's a pretty heavy number. But if it was a small amount and they were respectful of Israel's government and how things went, and even many of them joined the military and they did their thing, we would have no problem. We really wouldn't. We really wouldn't. Um, so I don't know, man. I think this is just a price we have to pay for having a land, man. I think the Jewish people have been blessed with a lot of things, but I believe from kind of a biblical standpoint that this is God's way of saying, here's the land, but it's gonna come at a cost.
I
And
think
maybe
particularly what you were saying about the whole conquesting thing is very interesting because when you look at examples, for example, like with the Spanish, when they conquered the Philippines or Mexico, or when the colonials came to the United States
Mhm.
and they conquered it from the Native Americans, when they built those places, when they actually colonized those areas, they didn't inhabit the same areas as the locals of those areas. They blocked them out completely. They lived in their own. We didn't colonize or conquer Israel. When we came back to what was the Palestinian territory, we didn't come back with this idea of we are colonizing the land or conquering it. It was we're coming home.
Yeah.
We're coming back to our place. It
Yep.
wasn't like what the Arabs did in that area, what the Muslims did in the caliphates and the Ottomans.
Because
So
they were never there. Yeah.
that's the thorn in our side is specifically because we didn't conquer the land. We
Yeah.
came in with this ideology of kumbaya, of let's
Yeah.
make peace with our neighbors, which our neighbors have rejected us since day one. They have had a deep-seated hatred for us, some of it which comes from religion, some of it that comes from anti-Semitic tropes that have just shuffled through the Middle East for the last 2,000 years. But all of that culminates to the fact that we didn't fucking do a good job because we didn't conquest, we didn't colonize.
Yeah.
And that's our problem. I'm not saying that we should have, but that
No,
explains the
you
whole
you are saying we should have in a way, and that's the reality. And like I'll argue this. I'll stand up for this point any day of the week. It's not that I want it. It's that it's in a way required in order to have peace within a land you live in. Because if you have a group of people who are unwilling to accept your sovereignty, then all you have is constant war. It's just a very simple principle. And so this is why before the media age throughout history, one group would conquer another to a point of no return, and there would be no ability to have that argument. And so it may eventually get to that point, man. It might happen now, it might happen in the future, but it might just come to a point where most of them will have to leave somewhere else. There might be what they call another. I don't like to say Nakba because I don't. I look at the side of
the
Israeli independence.
catastrophe,
The what?
the catastrophe, the
The
Nakba.
catastrophe. The catastrophe. So no, I mean this is the reality. They have tons and tons and tons of land to go to. They can go and visit Al Aqsa if they want to. Um, it is what it is. At the end of the day, we don't like Jews have been suffering over and over and over and over and over. I don't want other people to suffer, but my people come first. Period. End of story. And I hope the world will eventually recognize Israel to a larger extent. And if they don't, they can kiss matochas. That's what I have to say. So, dude, it has been a pleasure. We're gonna wrap up
Thanks,
now.
man, for having me. Appreciate
Bro,
it.
my pleasure. So, guys, like, subscribe, share. Make sure to leave your comments. Follow the Traveling Clatt on YouTube. Follow me on the gram. Follow Tal on the gram as well at the Traveling Clatt. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Until next time, peace.